So let's get into talking about data ethics. We're going to survey the lay of the land when it comes to data ethics. So we have our four main areas of AI ethics. Of these four, data ethics is the trickiest because it's essential, but at the same time, there's some stuff that is only tangentially related to artificial intelligence. So let me show you what I mean here. Okay, so data ethics is a broader category. It is essential for AI because it's the inputs of AI, but there's more to the story. So I teach in an analytics program and also in a cybersecurity program. So in those, topics such as data inference, the ethics of cybersecurity, the ethics of cyber warfare end up being pretty central. Also important for those classes is topics about bias and privacy and sustainability. But if you think about that list of six, not all of them are directly relevant for AI. So specifically, I mean, inference is a little tricky because when it comes to analytics, what we want is to get information about the data. We want to find out more about the data. You're still, of course, using machine learning models and stuff, but the point isn't to like build models that do something else. The point is to get information. So data inference only sometimes ends up being useful for artificial intelligence. Cybersecurity also, I mean, cyber warfare, right? Those things kind of get smushed together with AI in some people's minds, but they're not really the same thing. So what I'm proposing is that a focus on data bias, data privacy, and digital sustainability when it comes to discussing one of the four fundamental areas of the ethics of artificial intelligence. Okay, so let's continue our survey. Of course, what we want to do is in any of those three areas, think about how the five fundamental ethical values, fairness, autonomy, happiness, trust, and virtue, are implicated. So the way the values and the practice of using data for AI comes together gives us a few things to be concerned about. So when we talk about bias, right, what we're thinking about is, in bias in general, is just, you know, when there's a conclusion or direction of the evidence, if you will, but that's made prematurely. It's like it's without all the information being in. So data bias, it's like when there's some conclusion about a person or a group or an entity or something like that, but you don't have all the information. It's incomplete, and you make well, it comes off as it doesn't tell you the whole truth. So three ways that bias can slip into AI systems via data. The first is what I'm calling the problem of non-representative data. This will be familiar because there's a discipline called selection bias, or not discipline, but a phrase, selection bias, recognizable from just basic statistics. And the problem there is that, you know, the sample that you've polled, that you're examining, is supposed to represent, supposed to be proportional to the population, but it might not be. So here it's the same kind of thing. It's data that claims to represent something, but it doesn't actually represent it. So in other words, this data is inaccurate. All right, second, we have the problem of historically biased data. This, a lot of people, even people who do AI ethics and data ethics, sort of combine the first two problems, but they're completely different. So when we're talking about the problem of non-representative data, we're essentially talking about data that is not accurate. It's claiming to represent something, or in your mind to represent something that it doesn't. Okay. The problem of historically biased data is completely different. This is data that is accurate, but what it does is it accurately captures all the structural injustices of the past. Really, basically, essentially, any data about human beings is going to have some kind of, encapsulate some kind of structural bias. It's actually more rare than not to find a data set and that's just like doesn't have any social biases in it. So this is a problem, right? Because you're trying to train systems. You're trying to get them to make to tell you things, but if it's based on things that are already biased, data that's already biased, then you have to worry about what the output is going to be, how valuable it is, what's it going to tell you, garbage in, garbage out kind of thing. And the third, it's less recognized, but I think an important thing to worry about, the problem of data cleaning. So anybody that knows much about data science knows that data sets very, very rarely come to us clean. They're dirty, meaning that they're missing things, that they have weird information, the rows are out of place, missing some features. Dates are set at 1/1/1900, and that's probably just the default or something like that. And so the data scientist has to clean it up first. Well, there's a lot of discretion involved in that process, and a lot of times that those choices that you make to clean the data, you're not accountable for them, and they could end up creating a bias. Okay, second big area, data privacy. So there's the problem, first of all, of what I call the problem of digital data. And this builds upon the problem of privacy. So people talk about how important privacy is to them. But when you start questioning them about what it is, why it's important, and when it's important, you start to get really unsure answers. That was an analog data, right? But now that data is digital, those problems actually become much more intense. So we'll cover that in some detail when we get to the individual video on digital data. Second is the problem of anonymization. And what I'm thinking about here is that in the pre-digital world, or even in some of the digital world, anonymization was far and away the most important privacy-preserving technique. So in the age of AI, it's actually, anonymization fails in sometimes surprising ways. And so it's not the safeguard that it once was. And so those are issues that we need to talk about. Deep fake privacy, these last, well, yeah, that's something that I think most people are aware of, right? It's a deep violation of someone's privacy to have a video or audio of them made. There's a separate problem of misinformation and disinformation where we have to worry about a trust breakdown. But there's also the side of it where you think about the privacy violation of the individual who's having the video made about them. The video has them doing something that they didn't do. The problem of model training. Okay, so this has come up more in image generation models, but yeah, so an LLM will suggest some wording or an image or something like that, and a lot of people are worried that, hey, my artwork or my essays or my writing is being used to train the model, and I was not informed or compensated for that. So I consider that a privacy issue. Because you weren't intending for your work to be used that way. It was used in a way you didn't intend. And lastly, the problem of trade-offs. So privacy is a complicated subject, and a lot of times there's trade-offs to be made. You can't just, it's not just an absolute value where you can say, like, we always are in favor of privacy. There has to be exceptions sometimes. I'll explain that. But how do you balance when there is a value trade-off to be made? The last big area of data ethics that I think is directly relevant for the ethics of artificial intelligence is sustainability issues. I'm calling it digital sustainability, but you might choose a different title. But it's how that data processing, data storage affects the natural environment. So this is a huge topic because various AI technologies affect the environment in a lot of really important and dramatic ways. You've heard these claims maybe that just very simple systems can use like as much energy as an entire country. and I think those claims are verified. So this is a really troubling area to think about. I'll explain I'll make a video specifically about this, but there is, I think, some area for hope here, and specifically because, if you think about the scientific method, the different steps of the scientific method, actually every one of them can be vastly accelerated by AI. So what that can do is find new materials and find new ways to do things and new sources of energy that we haven't yet discovered because we're used to doing the scientific method the old-fashioned, very, very slow way. So this is one of the areas where I do think there's some reason for optimism, even though our current AI technologies are pretty hard on the environment. Okay, so those are, of the 6 areas of data ethics, I think the 3 that are most relevant here: data bias, data privacy, digital sustainability. So this has been a playlist that's meant to be a survey of data ethics, especially the areas that are relevant for artificial intelligence.